Alright, Mr. Bernay, we're going to try some examples from the homework here, Percent Practice Worksheet 4. And in this we learn how to do some more of these percent part to whole comparisons. So a really good cheat method I have up here is to think about comparing percentages as this proportion. So a percent over 100 for the first ratio, and then is and of for the next ratio. Probably isn't going to make a lot of sense right now, but you'll see that it's a really good kind of cheat system when you have these types of percent word problems. Basically what this is the first ratio is you're comparing whatever percent you have to 100, because that's what percent is, comparing a number out of 100. And then is and of is essentially a part to whole comparison. Okay, so think about a number being a part of a whole, just like a percent is a part of a whole. And hopefully this makes more sense as we start to dive into some of these. So let's try number 1. So again, we're going to use proportions to solve these. So the equation method isn't going to work for all of these. So for these percent word problems, you are going to have to use proportions, which you should all be very familiar with at this point. So number 1, the question is, what percent of 55 is 22? So we're looking at these key words, of, is, and percent. So since the question is what percent, and my percent always goes on top of my first ratio, because we don't know the percent, it says what percent, I'm going to use an N there. And 100 on the bottom. And is what percent of 55, so the of goes on the bottom, so 55 is 22. 22 goes on top. So again, I use that percent over 100 equals is over of cheat sheet model to fill in my numbers down here for my proportion. Alright, and once we have it set up, we just cross multiply, divide by the leftovers. So we have 100 times 22 divided by 55. So our answer here is 40. And it always helps to think about like the context of your answer. So the question is, what percent of 55 is 22? So 40% of 55 is 22. So if I have $55 and maybe I owe the bank 40% of that, I would owe the bank $22, in other words. Alright, so let's try a couple more, because you'll see that kind of the way we set these up varies depending on what the question's asking. So I'm going to skip forward to number 4. Number 4 asks, 3.75% of 2,000 is what number? So I'm going to set up my proportion. Okay, so immediately I see a percent. 3.75% goes on top, out of 100. Okay, of 2,000. So of always goes on bottom, according to my cheat system over there. So 2,000 on bottom is what number? So the is piece, the is what we're looking for. So since is goes on top and that's what we're looking for, I'm going to put an in there. Now I'm ready to solve. So cross multiply, divide by 100. So let's put that in the calculator. 3.75 times 2,000. Take that divided by 100. Get 75. So let's think about our answer here. 3.75% of 2,000 is 75. Okay, so if you have $2,000 and you want to think about what is 3.75% of that, 3.75% of that is 75. So if you buy like a $2,000 television and the tax rate is 3.75%, that's how much you're going to pay in taxes, $75. Alright, Again, it always helps to think about your number in context just to make sure you're kind of on the right track and aren't getting a crazy number. Okay, so let's skip ahead to number 7. This would be our last example here. Set up my proportion. Remember, we're using this percent over 100 equals is over of system. So for number 7 it says 128 is 40% of what number? So here's my is. 128 is, so is goes on top. 128 goes on top. 128 is 40%, so I see a percent there. My percent goes on top on the left side, over 100, of what number? Since the of piece is what we're looking for, I'm going to put an in there. And now we cross multiply, divide by the leftovers. Easy peasy. 100 times 128. Take that, divide by 40, and our answer is 320. So 128 is 40% of 320, which makes sense because 40% is about half, and 128 is not quite half of 320. Alright, so continue. Please do the rest of the problems on your own. Use this model up here, the percent over 100 equals is over of, to help you. And good luck.